Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming back. I hope you had a great lunch, or at least a tasty one. I want to thank you and welcome you to the afternoon segments of the Tri-State Apex Accelerator Mega Matchmaker for 2024. I'm happy to be the facilitator for this presentation on the DLA Aviation Replenishment Parts Purchase or Borrow program and the Source Approval Request Alternate Offer program. This is a question I get a lot from my clients, and I'm always interested to hear if there's any changes, any new things that DLA wants to do, for any kind of purchasing, because eventually it does go out to supporting the warfighter and other operations that our government has. So without further ado, let me do the introductions of our presenters today. First up is Ali Ollinger. She's the branch chief for Sourcing and Reliability Programs branch in the Engineering Directorate at Defense Logistics Agency Aviation down in Richmond, Virginia. That program includes the RPPOB, the Replenishment Parts Purchase or Borrow program, as well as other programs aimed at creating more sources for DLA aviation parts. Ali has over 10 years experience supporting DoD programs as a project and lead engineer in acquisitions and as an engineer supporting value engineering programs at DLA. Kevin Mintner, who will be presenting a little bit later, is the team lead for Required Sources, also known as the Ability One program, for small businesses, service disabled veteran-owned small business programs at DLA Aviation. Kevin has over 20 years experience in acquisition in the military and DLA Aviation as a contract specialist, supervisor and team lead, excuse me. He's a contract specialist, supervisor and team lead, apologies. He monitors the source approval request, the SAR program for new manufacturers, and all the subcontracting plans for DLA Aviation. So without further ado, please give a nice, warm, well, relatively warm, it's kind of chilly out here in Erie, warm welcome to Ali and Kevin. Take it away.
Great. Thanks, James. And good afternoon, everyone. It's still not warm down here in Richmond. We don't have the snow that I know some of you may have. So this afternoon, I will be presenting the slides for the Replenishment Parts Purchase or Borrow program and for SAR, but I have a lot of knowledgeable folks in the room. So as questions are asked, you'll probably hear some other voices as well. And I do want to point out that my brief is for DLA Aviation. I believe on the schedule tomorrow morning, you'll hear from DLA Land and Maritime. Throughout my brief, I have some points of contact for them, but our processes are slightly different. So you'll hear two different briefs and a slightly different process for each. Go ahead and get started. So we'll cover RPPOB and SAR, and then I believe we're having questions at the end, and James will read those off if those are put in the chat. Or I'm sorry, the Q&A box, I believe is how he would like those. All right, so first for our Replenishment Parts Purchase or Borrow program, we're looking to develop new sources of this program, and how we do that is companies are allowed to inspect, borrow, or purchase government-owned material with the intent of becoming a approved source by doing their own reverse engineering. And we'll go through our whole process here. Down in the lower left, you'll see our cycle. And in the lower right, you'll get a glimpse of our display room, which we have a video of later, but that's where we have a lot of parts stored here at DLA Aviation. But we also are able to order parts, not necessarily that are stored here, but just that are in the aviation portfolio. So quickly starting with the star at the top in the lower left there, if you identify a potential project, then you would submit a request, we'd review it, you'll get a sample, you would develop the tech data. And then once you have that tech data, that's when we move to the SAR part of this. You would submit the SAR and then possibly be approved. We'll go into more detail in the next slide for that process. So again, we have an electronic request system. through VSTAR. So on our website, there's instructions on what roles you'll need to request in order to be able to access that system. But that's how we process all of our requests, is through an electronic system. And then when you submit your request, we can provide you with information such as the demand for the item, the cost that it would be for you to purchase it or loan it, and then any available data we have. So we can provide you with that to give you a better idea of, is this a good fit for your company? And then if you want to proceed, then that's when we have two routes that I'll talk about some more. The military service concurrence, or ESA concurrence, is one route where before we ship you the part, we'll go ask the engineering service if we can do reverse engineering, if they have enough data to review any package that would be submitted. The other option would be vendor accepted risk, where we don't go out to the ESA at first and we can immediately ship you that. Obviously, there would be some risk involved with that. So if you want to proceed, then we would forward you a contract for the purchase or borrowing of the items. Going to the next slide. You would return the contract and payment for the items, and then we order and ship them to you to conduct the reverse engineering. After you conduct your reverse engineering, that's when you start the source approval process with a request. There's a link here for some guidance on that. And then we forward your SAR. Once we received it, we do a check of the information there. And when it's ready, we forward it onto the military service, because they are ultimately the ones that will review and approve. And there's a link to an example SAR. There are some restrictions for RPPOB items. RPP is not available for items with an AMSC of G or T. So that's either something where the data is open and available, or has a specification tied to it. So that data is already available. There'd be no need to create a TDP for it. Then the vendor assumed risk option that I spoke of earlier, that option is the only option available if you're looking at an AMSC B-coded item. And those have to go to the design control activity. So just some things to note when you're looking at items, to know what the AMSC is. And there's a link down, I'm not sure if y'all can see my cursor, but down here at the bottom, a link for checking the AMSC codes if you're not sure what the item is. And then AMSC items, some of those have complete TDPs available as well. So just a few instances to be aware of.
There are some AMCP items that the military services have that they will be the design control for, and we will send a 329 of those.
Okay, just a caveat from someone in the room here. Some AMSC B-coded items, the military service is the design authority, so the design control authority. So we will send 339s out for those, and when we send those 339 forms, that is when we're asking for ESA concurrence. So those two routes I talked about earlier, ESA concurrence versus vendor assumed risk. It really depends on who the design control activity is, at which route we go. All right, I'll move to the next one. And then some points of contact. So I mentioned earlier, Land and Maritime does their process a little bit differently, and they have a different inbox for requests. So they do theirs via email, and you can see the information they'd be looking for, and their list of NINs available is on their website. And then the aviation information at the bottom there. So we do have a group inbox that if you have questions before you get started in the process, or that can't be handled with our electronic system, we do monitor that inbox and can answer questions there. But all requests are then done through our website. And let's see, I think we're going to get into SAR next. And I know we've had a lot of links in our... Okay, sorry, I'm reading some of the comments as they come in. So a question on acronyms, we can go back through and talk to some of those. They're also all spelled out on the websites. And I know folks were asking, the links aren't live. I guess you'll receive the briefing afterwards, which will have all of this information as well. So we'll keep moving for SAR, and we can go back to any of these as needed when we get to questions at the end. So once you receive the part, you do the reverse engineering, then you've got your TDP and you're ready to put in a source approval request. So that's the request you're putting in to be considered for to be a new supplier of an approved item. The package has to have all the technical data needed to demonstrate competence to manufacture the NSN. And there are guides on this that go into more detail of what's included, what's expected. And we'll get into different categories of SARs as well. Little note here, an alternate offer is submitted when there's an active solicitation and you want your information to be reviewed. So just kind of different timing there with those two. So some of the acronyms that I spoke of earlier, and I apologize that I didn't spell out there, are spelled out here. The acquisition method code, the AMC, acquisition method suffix code, the AMSC, as I was mentioning earlier. Each NIN is assigned those based on the data that we have for it. And so the AMSC, that second part, is what I was mentioning earlier. And those are the letters associated with that NIN when it comes to this code. So you can look those up on one of the websites when you get the briefing later. There are 4 categories for SARs. I'm going to get into those on the next 4 slides. So I'm not going to go into detail here, but we'll go through those. And then, as I've mentioned, there's guidance available, both Land and Maritime, who'll be presenting tomorrow, and then guidance if it's an aviation managed item at the link there. And in addition to the DLA guidance, each service also has their own SAR guidance. Each service does things a little bit differently. And some have specific requirements that we just want to make you all aware of before we get into the process. So we've listed NavAir, Air Force, and Army links there. You can always reach out if you have questions and are looking for guidance specific to a service. So just be aware that there's multiple sets of guidance out there. So the alternate offer and SAR categories, a category 1 is the same part. So if you make the exact same part, you would be submitting a category 1 package. So our depiction here is the steering wheel, and you make the exact one already and submit for that. Category 2 is a similar part. So if you make something similar, our example here is steering wheel, it's a different color. Then you would submit your package as a category 2, that you make a similar item and justify that you could then make the item that you're applying for. Category 3 is a new part of manufacturer. So this covers items not listed as, or not category 1 or category 2 criteria, but you can show that you have the capabilities to make the part and you can demonstrate them. So you're already making something that uses the same processes, you work with the same material. There's a number of ways that you can justify that you have the capabilities in-house. And then category 4, so the reverse engineering we talked about earlier, for things that come through the RPBOB program. The category 4 covers items not covered in categories 1 through 3, and you don't possess the technical data, so you then develop it and are submitting to become an approved source by means of reverse engineering. And as requested, I believe the brief will be sent out, so you'll have all these links. We've got points of contacts for both the SAR program up top, and then again, RPBOB program below, and all the available information from our website there. let's before we get to the questions, and I think we've had a couple pop up. We've got folks in the room from Small Business Office, the Product Data Management team, and then our PPOB, and we're all here to answer questions. But we have one video, if it will play. There's no sound, and the connection might be slower now that we're all on. When we were in the test room, it did go through. You can at least see it if this doesn't move forward, but this is a picture of our display room. And if anybody's in the area or has plans to stop by the area, I know a lot of our vendors love to see this. So we've got about 4 shelves there extending to the right of this picture, full of items that we have here on site, that when companies come in, they can view them. And that generally helps to see them, to understand if the material is a good fit for what your company specializes in and could reverse engineer. So when this is sent out, I think the video may be sent with it. It is the larger file that way, but it kind of just walks you through the room to show you the parts that we keep in-house. I'll go back up to this to show the website, because I did see that question pop up. And our PPOB is the replenishment parts purchase or borrow program. So I did see that question pop up as well. That's the end of the brief. I know we went through it quickly with a lot of information, gave a high level discussion or presentation on what our PPOB is, and then how the SAR process ties into it. So we are open to questions now.
Okay, well, let me we'll scroll down through. There were some bigger questions that were in the chat here. And yes, just to put everyone's mind at ease, this presentation will be made available once everything's all done. And I know, Allie, you mentioned that earlier, but just want to reiterate that. A question from the audience. I thought if we were not the original equipment manufacturers, then we only had access to the GAMSC for bidding. Is that correct, or is that different now?
So for G, you'd have the data available. However, the RPPOB program, the aim there is to put a part in your hand so that then you could create the tech data, which opens up other AMSCs to you. So I want to make sure I understand this correctly. G is available in the sense that, yes, the data is already available out there and you could access it and then simply manufacture the part from that. But our PPOB program opens up the other AMSCs by providing you with that material to then do the reverse engineering. Just looking around the room here too to make sure covering it. So, okay.
Excellent.
For bidding purposes on a solicitation, G's would be the only thing that they could come in on, because we have all the tech data for it.
Right.
Yes. So I'm not sure. We're sitting around the room and my audio is coming from my computer. So I'll repeat what's been said so everybody can hear. For bidding purposes, then AMSCG would be all that's available because we have they have the tech data on it. But you can submit the SAR outside of the bidding process for other AMSCs that you've done reverse engineering for.
What is the process to research the part history in order to justify the work that would be involved in working in one of the categories?
So some of that data is available, but that's another thing that our team can provide you with is the annual demand quantity and annual demand value, so that you can make those business decisions. So that's a data request, and then we can also provide you.
There's also a 22-point checklist we do to make sure that it's a good candidate before it's sent to the supplier.
Right. So I apologize if you're hearing this, but I just want to make sure everybody hears it. We do have a checklist. Anything that somebody submits to our team is going to be reviewed. And if we have concerns of, hey, nobody's actually asked for this in the last however many years, or there's not a really demand for this, we're going to let you know that. But ultimately, it's a business decision for the companies that submit requests. We'll let you know that, and then you can let us know how you want to proceed as well.
Okay. Person in the chat mentions that they do additive manufacturing of stainless and nickel alloys. Have you had other 3D printing companies qualify parts, and can those be shared to other possible sources?
So 3D printing parts is a different manufacturing method that doesn't go through the same sort of approval as, obviously if you're just doing reverse engineering. It's, from my perspective, what I've seen, I'm not sure I've seen one go through yet, but we did just stand up an additive manufacturing kind of team here. So actually the person who was the branch chief before I was leads that team, and I'm happy to put you in contact with them for more additive questions. They would probably have more expertise on what is going on as far as getting those through. So I'm not sure if my contact information has been shared. I can put it in the chat, or actually it would probably be best to reach out to the group inbox there. That way I'm not a single point of failure, and we can get you the information.
Sure. And if you would like, if you can give the group email address, we can get that posted up for follow-up materials to conference attendees as well.
Yes, absolutely. I went back to the contact page for anybody that wants that. So that middle email address for the RPPOB email is a fine place to put that, dscr.boc@dla.mil. It's a couple places in our presentation, but you can reach out to that email address.
Right.
Yes, it's also on our webpage. If you just Google, I know it sounds really basic, but if you just Google RPPOB, the aviation page is the first one that comes up. So I know I've got links in here that you all don't have access to yet, but Google will be a quicker find than before these come out. So
Sure. All right. Let's see. I've been asked in a meeting to provide my NSN spreadsheet. I'm just going to paraphrase this question. Do you have any recommendations or possible examples of ways to develop an NSN spreadsheet?
ooh, so that's kind of hard to answer, not understanding the use of that spreadsheet. So I might take this in a direction they didn't intend, but on our website, we have a list of NSNs that have been, candidates essentially. Thank you, Steve. Candidates essentially for the RPPOB program, some that have gone through ESA concurrence already. So if you're being asked to develop an NSN list of candidates and you're interested in the RPPOB program, you think you could reverse engineer it, then become a source, you could start with our list that we have out there. If that's not answering the question and a follow-on doesn't come on, again, you can reach out to the group inbox if there's something more specific that I've missed.
Also, if they have one of their own NSNs, they could send it to our inbox so we can view it and evaluate it.
Correct. Yeah. So Steve was bringing a point. The spreadsheet I mentioned on the website that has NSNs are ones that we've vetted, we've found by one means or another to be good candidates that we're in need of new sources for. However, that doesn't mean that we wouldn't accept or purchase and then send a part. If a company comes to us and says, hey, I'm interested in making this NSN, and we have enough on hand, go through our checklist and it makes sense, we'll send it to them as well. So if you have your own developed NSN spreadsheet, reach out and we can work with you to provide you with that material for reverse engineering.
Sure. One thing that I've encountered as an Apex Accelerator counselor, especially with NSN documentation, is we always recommend you have obviously the NSN, the whatever 13 digits of that, the nomenclature that's listed on any number of databases, but basically all the ones that are that DLA feeds into. And then I have, if there's any information that's internal to your company, a part number, a revision date, maybe like an item description. The only caveat to that is if you're dealing with something that is not fit for public consumption, like maybe something a little on the top secret side of things, or even like controlled unclassified information, the CUI that is becoming quite a topic of late. Maybe redact that or don't list it or have it in a private conversation with these folks.
You know, other thing.
Okay, let's see, scrolling down here. Is there a template system available for creating a source approval request?
No, not that I'm- When you say a template of items that are required in each category?
So when the question about the template, is that a template for the items that are required for each category for SAR? Sorry, we may need a follow-up there.
Is there some sort of template system available? That's all they say. We might have to circle back to that one.
So there is, let me go back up. So that's the services, our guidance. I think there's,
In that ESOP that I sent you.
Mhm.
There's a page in there that calls out everything that's required for each category.
okay.
Of what has to be in there.
Okay, so there's a page that calls out what's required for each category when you're submitting a SAR. So if that meets the template question, then that is available. A template to actually fill in and complete. So I'm reading Brian's response there. For example, I only saw part of it. It's the last part of the chat. Let me see if I can pull it up. All right, sorry, I'm going to read Brian's question then. His question is a template to actually fill in or complete. For example, if I had an item I wanted to offer and needed to submit a SAR, is there a SAR documentation template? So is there like a form is what I'm hearing?
Mhm. Yeah, I agree. Now that I see his follow-on comment.
I'm not seeing it.
Okay, we're not aware of a form, but Brian, you're welcome to reach out and discuss this further. I'm not sure if we're just talking different language here. Okay, yep. So one of my SAR experts, I'm definitely not the expert on SAR, so I'm looking at others in the room and they'll forward me something. So Brian, if you want to submit that question or at least give us your contact information, we might have something that could help.
Perfect. Can you share more info about the RPPOB and how companies can get involved?
Okay. I'll take this in a direction and please submit a follow-up. But so more information on our PPOB, I would recommend going to our website and that will have pretty much all of the information I went through today. Thank you, Brian. I'll take your information down. And how you can get involved. So really it's just starting that process of getting in there, finding an NSN that you might want to create. And again, we have the spreadsheet on our website of NSNs we're looking at. But if you have one that you are interested in, we're open to that too. Get in there, create an account. There are a few steps in the process before you actually submit the request just to get access to our electronic system. But then submit it and reach out. If you have questions beforehand, again, reach out to our group inbox because we can help you. But that NSN spreadsheet, if you're specifically looking for an NSN to start working on, I recommend the spreadsheet on our website. And then from there, it's just submitting a request. Yes, we do have vendor information up. So James, if I send you, I don't think it's in our brief because it is pretty late breaking, a new thing that's called Vendor Information Hub, and we have an RPPOB page. If I send you a link to that, would you be able to get it out to the participants as well?
Yes.
In fact, I might be able to just put it in the chat. If I can multitask, I'll get it in the chat today, but if not, I will send you that link.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great.
Okay. But that also is a step-by-step to walk through the RPPOB program. it's really finding an NSN and getting your first request in to how do you get involved in the program.
Sure. Okay.
Thanks. The link is actually in the brief. Thank you, Aaron, for pointing that out. I missed it on one of our first few slides, but once you have the brief with all the links, that vendor information hub is another helpful place. It's not the RPPOB website, but they probably link to each other. I can't remember everything we put in there. It's a lot of information though.
It shows them how to sign up for all the roles they need to put in the request,
Mhm.
and then talks about the types of requests that they can make and everything. It's right there. in one
Yes,
spot.
and it even goes down into SAR process a
Yes,
little bit.
yes.
Yep. Yeah, so this vendor information hub, don't have slide numbers on there. I apologize, but it's probably about slide 3 maybe. This starts you from the very beginning on how to request the roles to get into our electronic system and what's needed, and walks you all the way through down to the SAR process as well, with links for helpful documents. So this vendor information hub will also be very helpful. I feel like we've thrown a lot of options out there, but maybe this is where you should start.
What if our customer is a current source for that part and we are subcontracted to them?
So I guess I want to understand the relationship a little bit. So if you are making the part as a subcontractor, but that the prime is the one that's actually on contract with DLA,
Mhm.
not, I'm gonna look at people in the room because I'm not the SAR person, but you would have that data to prove that you make that exact part. I got a question in the room. Are they a licensee? I'm not sure if the person could send a follow-on to answer that, but so if you have the data to prove that you make the part, depending on the licensee, I guess, agreement, you could potentially submit, I would assume it'd be a Cat 1. Sorry, you make the exact part.
The steering wheel.
Yeah,
the steering
or an
wheel,
alternate offer. Yep, or it could be an alternate offer if there's something out there already. Solicitation.
Yeah, I have a client that's kind of in a similar situation. They're kind of like the boutique maker of a certain type of product, and basically they have other customers that are selling the very same things to DLA. So I've been recommending they become a supplier as well. I think they have actually taken it. Excuse me. Let's see. If your SAR package is rejected due to a restrictive AMSC, example given 3P, what are the options to either challenge the rating or reverse engineer the part with an alternate TDP?
Disapproval letter because of this 3P. What's their options now?
We're having a little discussion in the room. We may have to get back
fine.
on that one.
Yeah, that's a good down in the weeds question. Sure.
What are they originally saying?
The saying that submitted a SAR for an AMC, AMSC
Of 3P and got rejected.
Disapproved.
Yeah, this
Now what's their option? Reverse engineer or possibly an alternate offer when solicitation. If it's a P item, that's saying right off the bat that data is proprietary to somebody. And the services probably does not have the data
to review it.
your SAR package.
Right.
I'm going to repeat that in case you all didn't hear that. If it's a P-coded item, that's saying that that information is proprietary to somebody. So likely when you submit this SAR and it ends up with the services, with the ESA, they likely do not have the information to review your package against the proprietary information. They probably don't have access to that. So I'm not sure. Looking around the room, we're not seeing a path forward right now, but I don't want to. Yeah. Okay.
It's proprietary. They don't have the information to evaluate the
Right.
SAR.
There's not much that we can. Even if the item was like reverse engineered, they don't. Again, that's why we go to the ESA up front for a lot of things and ask, hey, can we start reverse engineering this? Is it worth our time? Because they have to have the data in their possession, have the ability to review it against something. So not seeing much of a path forward in the room. Those P-coded items are hard when the services don't even have access to the data. Okay, I'll look it up. Yes, please. So I apologize that we don't have a great path for you on that one.
Is DLA able to tell us how many SAR applications have been submitted for a given NSN?
Yes,
Yes.
that was an easy
Okay.
one. All right, keep them
Yeah,
coming.
Yeah. Yeah, 1 second here. There's a question here about I resell computer parts and software. Can you provide me with some tips on how I can do business with DLA? To the person that asked that question, what I'm going to recommend is you reach out to your local Apex Accelerator, and I will put that link in the chat so you can find your closest Apex Accelerator. Our services are free, and we do a lot of stuff on how to do business with DLA. So, all right, let's see. Oh, can you clarify the process difference between copying a part, like producing an equivalent TPD, and suggesting an improvement to an existing part with a better or more cost-efficient manufacturing process?
So the second half of that, the suggesting an improvement, is more like an engineering change proposal. Both of those ultimately have to go back to the ESA, but our group does not directly handle engineering change proposals. We are trying to add more sources to an existing item, and a change to that item would either make a new item or a newer revision. So off the top of my head, I don't have a good contact for the second half of that question. We may be able to ask around. But our group generally just handles the reverse engineering and producing an exact copy of the part, but not an improvement.
Okay.
John, I'm writing your name down, John. I don't see contact information listed, but if you put it, I'll at least ask and see if I can find your contact for that second part, but I make no promises and not sure who handles that here.
What is the process for requesting access to things like proprietary software?
That's, we don't do anything.
Yeah.
for proprietary information.
Right. We don't.
We're not allowed to promote it.
Correct. Sorry, I'm just listening to Steve Kelly here in the room. Actually, he's the one pictured on our slide that's up right now. He's our program manager, but we ourselves, don't generally have access to it, and certainly don't have the ability to distribute any proprietary software.
We can't even view it anymore.
Yeah, generally we can't even view it. So
Mhm.
we don't handle the process for requesting access to that, and generally we don't even have access to that. So apologies, can't help you with that one.
Okay. All right. Does your group, DLA Aviation, work with the Federal Aviation Administration to correlate information on parts, kind of like making sure that new technologies are approved, like solar, LEDs, etc.?
No, our group does not do that. DLA Aviation, to my knowledge, looking around the room, does not do that. That is handled with like the design control activity. Any sort of new improvement that's made, again, really starts there. We don't initiate those new things.
Okay.
From the FAA guidance.
Right.
But we don't actually mandate any of those.
Right, yeah. So in the room, the discussion is that we incorporate the changes from FAA guidance into our policies, procedures, standards, that sort of thing, but we don't make the change to the physical items. The ESAs would do that, and that information would eventually flow to us so that we are buying the correct part, or if somebody were to request to reverse engineer something, we want to make sure we're giving them the latest. But that approval and coordination with the FAA to update the parts is done with the ESAs.
Okay. Great. What is the process to introduce a new offering or component to DLA?
If they want information beforehand, they can submit the type of other request.
Okay.
Right.
So to introduce a new offering or component to DLA, I guess I took that as like a new NSN,
Yes.
which
Okay. Is it a
would
new
come
company?
through. I mean, again, the ESAs have to do that. We don't.
Is it an NSN on this new part?
Right. If the new part has an NSN, I think that changes things a little for us. But if it's completely not even cataloged yet, then DLA is not the starting point for that. Let's go through this. Okay.
Are there any plans to come up with the same SAR format for all of the services? I'm assuming they mean like DLA, land and maritime, aviation, etc.
Okay, I guess my assumption there, and we've got a lot of them, so it could be that as well. Was the branches too, like
Oh,
Air
okay.
Force and Navy? So I think it could be
Sure.
either. So we'll try to address that.
Okay.
There is an initiative right now between DLA and the Air Force of some software that is supposed to work with vendors that want to make manufacture items for DLA and any other service. And it's called SAPAC. That's getting vetted right now. They're trying to sell that DoD wide, but that's in its infancy stages right now. And we don't know if all the services are going to buy off from there or not. And how that's going to work is, say you have a company that's having issues submitting SAR packages, they got a lot of failures. This company already has the software that'll tell you what you need to put the SAR package in, and it's going to help your success rate out significantly. And it's really a good program, but like I said, it's in its infancy stages right now. We've just spent $1 million with the Air Force right now to get this on its feet, and we're going to be trying to sell that to the other services in the near future.
Before I repeat that, because it was good information, I'll ask: were you all able to hear? That was Mike Henry on our team. James, were you able to hear him? Or?
It was a little muffled.
A little muffled. Okay,
Yeah,
so there's
sorry.
a software package. I'm going to paraphrase, and Michael, let me know if I mess this up. But there's a software package that we're working with the Air Force on that takes your SAR information and helps you understand what's needed in certain areas for the SAR package. And the hope, it's in its infancy stages, but the hope would be that would be adopted by other services as well to make this a more streamlined and more straightforward, I think, process. When you're putting your information in, this software would really help identify what's needed. So yes, there is something that's been started, but it's starting with the Air Force, and then we have to grow it from there and get the buy-in from the other services.
Okay. And it looks like there was a follow-on question similar to that, trying to figure out how do we find or locate the military branch or configuration manager for a particular weapons platform, to figure out who manages the part. Do you happen to know if that data is available on Publog or FLIS list?
Yes, it's in WebFliss or Fliss. Tells you which branch.
Okay.
It's primary for the NSN.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, the follow-on to that was the question was important, just because they want to figure out what SAR format they need to use before they deploy it to a branch. But it sounds like your solution that you mentioned, the one that's in the nascent stages there, might be the best path forward, that it kind of directs you to where you need to go.
Correct. Yeah. Longer term down the line, if that's adopted, then that would be the easiest route. But for now, in FLIS, you can find what branch manages the part, and we've have links in our brief for some of the different services and what their SAR guidance is. So I understand that it's a lot of different things to look at and consider when you're doing this, but we just want to make sure you all have the information so that we can have the best success rate possible.
Certainly, absolutely. So far, nothing's been popping into either the chat or the Q&A box. Let's see, just making sure I didn't miss anything. So, someone popped in. Can anyone use FLIS, or do you need a common access card?
There's a public access.
Yeah.
There's a public access to FLIS.
Yeah.
I'm being told Google it. Apparently Google is a very good resource for this. I'm not sure if we, not in the RPPOB world, but that vendor information hub has more than just RPPOB on it. That may have things. I don't want to make that guarantee, but that vendor information hub has a lot of good information for vendors, hence the name. So you may find information on FLIS there if you're not aware of how to get to the public side of it.
I'll have to look back through my links. I believe that I have a link for the public side of FLIS and have used it recently.
Okay, yeah, that would be great if you could distribute that.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. It gives you there's a potential security risk ahead. Yeah.
I see one more question. Is there a way to file one SAR package for a series of very similar parts? Example, they only differ in length. That was. Yes. There is a way. Is it in a guide that this is from John.
Normally, you don't have to do another slot package. If you get qualified on one,
Mm-hmm.
you can just release a bid, and normally I coordinate that with the ETM. You're qualified on this link, this link, this link. You might have to go to another service, but normally that's an easy process.
Okay. I'm being told it's an easy process if you're qualified.
And it's not necessarily a SAR all the time.
Okay.
Once you qualify on one, if you show that you can make that same item off the same drawing, if it's linked, they normally 9 times out of 10 will get approved.
Okay.
Yeah.
So just to repeat that, it's not always another SAR. Generally, drawings, if there's just a length difference, it's the same drawing, just a different dash number or something. So if you can prove basically that you're using this drawing but making a different length, then it's a fairly straightforward process, sounds like.
Okay. We've got about 2 minutes remaining in the session here. Our last time for any quick questions, but while people are thinking of questions to stump our panel here, do want to thank the team from DLA Aviation for taking time today to speak with us and to answer our questions. And we're always, like I said in my introduction, I'm always happy to learn more about what's going on with them because there's a lot of activity that my clients tend to chime in with. So.
Yeah, thank you for having us as we're, wrapping up, seeing if there's any questions, last minute ones. I have our contact information page up, that dscr.boc@dla.mil. It's a place you can ask any future questions that comes to the RPPOB program. We've got the SAR analyst email up there as well. And again, you'll get this presentation. But I just want to thank you all for having us and for the great discussion and great questions.
Sure. All right. I will follow back around with you. I think I can get your contact information from the admin side of the page there. So But and I don't know if we can do a virtual applause or anything like that. I think there's some reactions down at the bottom, but no, but thank you again for this presentation. And we look forward to further conversations with you and definitely in support of your mission there.